Hey guys, welcome to the Dancing Philosopher. In this episode, we're going to talk about race because in the weekend just past, there was this huge boycott by football clubs, rugby clubs, tennis players. They were going off social media to make a point to these social media platforms that they should do something about all the abuse, the racist abuse that's published on their platforms. And I'm going to make the controversial claim, okay? The claim is that far from being effective, these sort of campaigns are not only ineffective, they're actually self-defeating. They play into the hands of racists in a certain way. So the first thing I'm going to say is I've watched a lot of these campaigns. Say no to racism is a big thing in football. They do it in FIFA, UEFA. Many football clubs sign on to it. They have all these huge adverts with all our football stars, saying no to racism, no to racism, no to racism. It's on the advertising boards and it's on their armbands, and nowadays they even take the knee before matches to say that there's no room for racism. This has coincided with an actual rise of racist abuse by fans, online, by some players and staff themselves in the stadia, and fans as well. And we think that we are reacting to their racism, and I think that there is a sort of dynamic where we cause each other's reactions. Now, I'm not saying that we are responsible for people being racist. Of course we're not. But I'm saying that we have a causal role to play and we need to understand that so we can actually solve the problem. The reason I say this is because I have noticed a certain, how do I put it, especially in the whole George Floyd thing, a certain acceptance of the race narrative that plays into racists' hands. The narrative is they want us to see the world through the eyes of race. They want us to take our race seriously. Yes, we're going to fight for justice, we're going to do the X, Y, and Z. Whereas what we really want is for race not to be an issue. The tragedy of George Floyd is not that he was a black man, it is that he was a life. And I think it would have been far more damaging to racists if we simply treated it as, oh, a man was killed by police. Whatever the motives are, he's a nasty racist, but he was killed by police and he's going to get the law handed to him, right? And there's something about, if we make race an issue, then they do feel a bit threatened because they see the world in a certain way and it causes a certain reaction. I'm not saying that we shouldn't make them feel threatened. I think there's a far more effective way of doing this, which is, well, should I say, by making race an issue, they begin to say, right, they've sort of got the point we're trying to make. Contrast that. I'll use a contrast, okay? I was raised in a very multiracial school, and we never made race an issue. In fact, if you mention the word racism, most kids would just think, oh, that's something we see in the news, but it doesn't happen here. There were no racist campaigns in school, anti-racist campaigns in school. We just didn't see ourselves through the lens of race, to the point that we even made racist jokes towards each other, just playing off what we saw in the media and making fun of stuff. I mean, that's such as the naivety and perhaps stupidity of youth. But that's just how much fun we had with racial narratives. You couldn't hurt someone in school by drawing attention to their race. We just accepted it, we played with each other, we said it to each other, we dated each other. It was just not an issue. Then when I left and went into the big world outside, I began to realize, hey, there are some people who see the world through the eyes of race, and many of them don't like me being black. And I began to say, right, I mean, was there ever a problem? I mean, does it hurt the eyes? Does it smell? I mean, what is it? And I just never got it. And every now and then, by every now and then I mean like once a year or something like that, be walking home with my friends after a night out or whatever, and a car driving past, someone would just yell out something racist, and my friends will get all angry, and it was a mixture of anger and embarrassment and other things. And I would tell them, hey guys, if they're not hurting me physically or affecting my chances in life by, firing me or preventing a promotion or something, whatever, if they're not doing that, I really don't care what they think about me, right? That's their problem. And the truth is, probably because of my upbringing, which is what I might take for granted, is I still don't see myself as a black man. I just see myself as a person. I don't even see myself as a man. I mean, I am all these things, but I just see myself as another human being living in a world of other human beings. And hey, I grew up in tribal Kenya. I know what it is for society to impress identities on you. And if you're black and in America, I'm not gonna talk down what you go through. Many institutions, are against you in certain ways. But the main victory that I perhaps take for granted in myself is that I have never seen the world through the eyes of race. Okay. And no matter what a racist says to me, they're just not going to change that. And I think that is a victory that many people don't enjoy. Okay. And obviously, for obvious reasons. And I don't want to play down what it's like to live as a black person in America and stuff. It'll affect you in certain ways. But what we want, the end game is to be so secure that words can't hurt you. Okay. If I went to someone of a different race or a white person or a Chinese person, I know there's a whole racism against Chinese people because of COVID, but say a white person, and I said something racist against them, I mean, it would be a nasty thing, but I wouldn't, it probably because of its history, there's just the white identity is just secure. There are many things words will just not be able to do. And many people don't see see the world through the eyes of race. And I think that's what we want. And when people talk about education, we need to educate people to not be racist. It is not a matter of education at all. I've met some very uneducated people who are so good natured and so pleasant and didn't see the world in a certain way. And I've met very educated people. Think of Nazi Germany in the 1930s, right? The German people were the most educated and enlightened people in the whole world, right? It's just that they believed a narrative their leader told them to see the world a certain way. It's not about education, it's about revelation. Some scales need to fall off the eyes. Now, how does this happen? I mean, I think we've all had certain prejudices. It might not have been race, at some point in our life, usually growing up. And what usually changed these prejudices was just exposure to the person you have a prejudice against. And I'm still licking my sore, sorry. Just by being exposed to them, you just began to see that, hey, they're just as good as me in certain ways. They're just as bad as me in others. They're just other human beings. And, the scales fall off. And so I don't think it's about education as such. It's just about revelation. They need to see. They need to see you, whatever, just as a person. And if you force through the race narrative or the gender narrative or the nationality, whatever it is, there's something about them that is gratified. And I'm not saying that it's not important to do it. I'm just saying there's a dynamic here that no one really talks about. So, is there a case, perhaps, for rather than engaging in these campaigns, is there a case for ignoring them? If it's just words, remember, if it's just words, is there a case for saying, your words can't hurt me because I know who I am? And there's something about, you will take something that they want. If you don't pay attention to your race in the way they're trying to and just ignore them, and just treat them as another nasty person, then a victory is gained here, I think. A very significant victory is gained here and in the mind. I'll give you another example. I spent some time in the Netherlands, and I go back and forth sometimes. And I remember my first time going there, it was at an event, and there were some friends, they were all Dutch. And I remember holding the door open for this lady. And she sort of gave me a look and then paid no attention to it. And then I did it again later on in the evening, and she made a comment that was equivalent to, I've got hands, I can open the door for myself, thank you. She wasn't being rude or anything. It's just that we in England, we there's this, chivalry that's trained into us. We don't even think about what to do with. We sort of enforce the gender divide by being chivalrous and being nice. Now, of course, many people like to be treated that way. But the point is, in the Netherlands, they just don't see society through the eyes of gender. So that, oh, a lady's going through the door, you should do this. No, they're just she's just another person who happens to be a woman. and and the way Dutch women think of themselves, I don't see a a distinction in the way that they're treated in any sort of way. They ride the same bikes, get the same jobs, and there are no campaigns, equality for women or something like that. There's just an assumption that they take for granted. Gender becomes an issue so I went for a dancing event, the lady's going to be the follower, the guy's going to be the lead. Gender is important. Or, who you have a crush on, usually the girl will, fancy a guy, and that's when you think about your, that's when they thought about their gender. Otherwise, I think Dutch women are so empowered because they take their value for granted. And that's something to be said for I think, the whole racist thing. If there was a queue of people outside of my flat waiting to shout racist abuse at me every time I left my flat, or and if all they were doing was just shouting abuse, I'd live a very happy life, right? Why? Because they are the ones with the problem. So my question is there a case for ignoring racists and just treating it as any other nasty bit of abuse, whether it's against gender, whether it's against nationality, whether it's against race or something? Just treat nasty people as you treat racists as you treat any nasty people. You ignore them until they become either violent or they express their views or prejudices in another way, and then you take legal action or whatever complaints procedure. But then we don't make race an issue. I'd love to know your thoughts. Otherwise, I'm still yet to put out a dancing video expressing the solidarity with the Indian people and the crisis that they're going through. Hopefully, by the end of the week, I'll be able to do that. But for now, I hope you all have good weeks, and do let me know what you think. Toodles!